Not here to make this difficult. I just need to confirm who signed off and why it moved so quickly.
The paperwork's in order. We had authorization before sunrise.
Then we shouldn't have a problem. Let me see it.
You'll have it in your hand before you leave.
The dashcam footage from Cruiser 402 would eventually be reviewed by 3 federal judges, the mayor's office, and more than 20 million people online. But on that calm, sunlit Tuesday morning, Officer Kyle B.R. had absolutely no idea that the man he was about to confront wasn't a suspect, wasn't a criminal, and wasn't who he thought he was at all. Because the man standing on that sidewalk wasn't just another black employee near city property. He was the federal official who oversaw compliance for the very systems that kept the city running. The man who decided whether millions of dollars in federal funding continued to flow or stopped overnight. Before we break this story down, I want you to pause for a moment and think about something. Go to the comments right now and answer this honestly. Do you trust that police officers always know the laws they are sworn to enforce? Type yes or no. And if you believe that understanding the law should be a minimum requirement for carrying a badge, hit that subscribe button, because the mistake you're about to see didn't just cost one officer his career. It nearly triggered a federal shutdown of city funding. It was 1030 a.m. On a crisp, clear Tuesday, Marcus Thorne stood alone along the outer perimeter of the municipal water and power substation. Bathed in bright morning sunlight, he wasn't hiding. He wasn't running. He wasn't doing anything illegal. He was doing his job. And in less than 10 minutes, that job would put him in handcuffs inside the back of a squad car, accused of crimes he didn't commit by an officer who never bothered to ask the right question. This is the story of what happens when authority meets arrogance and picks the wrong man. Marcus Thorne was 54 years old, and he moved with the deliberate calm of a man who had spent most of his adult life inside federal buildings, briefing rooms, and oversight hearings. Nothing about him was rushed. Nothing about him was loud. His presence carried weight, the kind that came from years of making decisions that affected entire cities rather than individual people. He was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal 3-piece suit tailored with precision. The jacket sat perfectly on his frame. The silk tie was knotted without a wrinkle. The suit alone cost more than many officers' monthly salaries. But Marcus didn't wear it to impress anyone. He wore it because when you represented the federal government, appearance was part of the authority. In his left hand, Marcus held a ruggedized, government-issued tablet, the kind designed to survive rain, impact, and field inspections. With a stylus, he tapped methodically, documenting every detail around him. The fencing, the signage, the visibility of emergency warnings. Marcus Thorne wasn't law enforcement. He didn't carry a weapon. He carried something far more disruptive, a mandate. He was the regional director of federal compliance for the Department of Infrastructure. His job wasn't glamorous. It was technical, quiet, and extremely powerful. If a facility failed to meet federal standards, Marcus didn't issue warnings. He froze funding. Millions of dollars in grants could vanish with a single compliance failure. Today's inspection was scheduled, but unannounced. Perfectly legal, perfectly authorized. Marcus had the permits. He had the clearance. He had the authority. What he didn't have and didn't need was permission from anyone who didn't understand the law. The municipal water and power substation sat in a quiet semi-industrial zone on the edge of the city. During the day, the area was almost deserted, broken only by the occasional utility truck or delivery van passing through. It was the kind of place where nothing ever happened until something did. Behind the chain-link fence, transformer towers hummed steadily, their low mechanical vibration blending into the still morning air. Marcus adjusted his glasses and focused on his screen. blocking out everything else as he worked. He typed one final note with his stylus. Section 4, B violation. North perimeter fencing compromised. Required signage missing. He had just finished the sentence when the sound of crunching gravel reached his ears. A vehicle had pulled up behind him. Marcus didn't turn around right away. He didn't flinch. He didn't tense up. He finished saving the note, locked the screen, and only then slowly lifted his head. A marked police cruiser had rolled off the street and onto the grass verge, stopping aggressively close to where he stood, close enough to be intentional. The driver's door swung open. Officer Kyle BR stepped out. He was 29 years old, clean cut, with a high and tight haircut and a uniform stretched tight across his shoulders. His posture was rigid, his chest pushed forward, his thumbs hooked casually into his duty belt, resting just inches from his weapon. Kyle BR didn't look cautious. He didn't look curious. He looked eager. To Marcus, the scene registered as an interruption, nothing more. A local officer doing a perimeter check, early and uninformed, to Officer BR. However, the picture looked very different. A well-dressed black man, standing alone, taking notes near critical infrastructure. In his mind, this wasn't an auditor. This was a problem waiting to be confronted. "Morning," Marcus said calmly, his voice low and even. He didn't turn fully toward the officer. He didn't tense up. After acknowledging the presence behind him, he simply turned back to the fence and the tablet in his hand. That small gesture controlled. Dismissive. Unafraid was the moment everything shifted. "Partner." Officer BR barked, his voice sharp and commanding. "Turn around and step away from the fence." It wasn't a request. It was an order. Marcus paused. He capped the stylus with a soft click and slowly turned around to face the officer. He didn't step away. He didn't raise his hands. He simply looked at BR over the rim of his glasses, his expression carrying the weary patience of a man used to dealing with people who overestimated their own authority. "I'm not your partner," Marcus said evenly, "and I'm conducting a federal compliance audit." Officer BR stiffened. Marcus gestured casually toward the substation behind him. "If you're here for a routine security check, you're about 40 minutes early." BR took a step forward. He didn't like the tone. He didn't like being corrected. And he definitely didn't like the suit. In his mind, this man wasn't supposed to sound confident. He wasn't supposed to sound informed. And he certainly wasn't supposed to dismiss a police officer. To BR, a black man in an expensive suit taking notes near a restricted facility wasn't a professional. He was either casing the site or pretending to be someone important. And Officer Kyle BR had already decided which explanation he preferred. Officer BR closed the distance between them, his boots pressing into the gravel with deliberate force. He stopped far too close, well inside Marcus's personal space. A tactic meant to dominate rather than protect. "We've had reports of suspicious activity in this sector," BR said, his hand settling more firmly on his duty belt. "You're taking notes. You're photographing critical infrastructure. That's a security violation." Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't step back. "Actually," he replied calmly, "this inspection is mandated under Title 49 of the Federal Code. I'm here to verify compliance." He held up the tablet slightly, not as a shield, but as proof of purpose. "I am the Regional Director of Federal Compliance." Marcus continued, "This is a federally subsidized utility zone. If you're looking for a threat, you're standing in the wrong place." The words hit BR like an insult. Director, Federal, Compliance, to breathe. They sounded rehearsed, too smooth. Too confident. Yeah, BR said, his tone hardening. I didn't ask for your resume. He leaned in closer. All I see is a guy in a fancy suit trespassing on city property. It's not city property. Marcus corrected him, his voice dropping slightly. It's federally regulated infrastructure. Then Marcus did something most people never dared to do. He turned his back on the officer. It wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. He had work to finish. And that single movement, quiet, controlled, and completely uninterested in the officer's authority, triggered something dangerous inside Kyle Barr. In that moment, this stopped being about security. It became about control. I said, "Turn around." Officer Barr's voice snapped. Louder now. Sharper. Carrying the edge of someone who felt his authority slipping away. He moved quickly to block Marcus's path, stepping directly in front of him. You don't walk away from me when I'm conducting an investigation. Marcus stopped. He let out a slow breath through his nose. The kind a man takes when patience has officially run out. Then he turned to face the officer fully. "Officer," Marcus said, his voice calm but unmistakably firm. "Let's be very clear. I am not a suspect. I am a federal official on federal business." He gestured subtly toward the substation. "The only investigation happening here is the one I am conducting." BR sneered. "You got some ID to back up that mouth." He leaned in closer, invading Marcus's space again. "Because right now, all I see is a guy in a suit trespassing on city property and refusing to cooperate." Marcus didn't argue. Instead, he nodded once. "Yes," he said, "I have credentials." Slowly, deliberately, Marcus reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket. Every movement was controlled, telegraphed, careful. He knew the rules of this game. Move too fast, and fear would be claimed. He withdrew a black leather bifold. This wasn't a wallet. It was a commission book. Marcus opened it. On one side, his photograph, name, and clearance level. On the other, a heavy, gold-plated shield bearing the Great Seal of the United States and the title, Federal Compliance Director. He held it steady at chest height. Officer BR stared at it, squinted, and then he laughed. "That's cute," BR said, a smirk spreading across his face. "Where'd you get that Amazon?" Marcus's eyes hardened behind his glasses. "That," he replied coldly, "is an official commission issued by the United States government. It carries the authority of the Secretary of Infrastructure." BR shook his head. "Yeah," he scoffed. "And I'm the King of England." And with that dismissal casual, arrogant, and absolute officer Kyle BR crossed the line that would end his career. Officer BR's smirk faded, replaced by irritation. "You think I haven't seen fake badges before," he said, shaking his head. "Listen, Director. You're going to hand me your driver's license and tell me what you're really doing here." Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. "I am advising you," he said calmly, "to call your watch commander and read him the serial number on that credential." BR's jaw tightened. "I don't need to call anyone to spot a fraud," he snapped. "You're detained. Failure to identify. Trespassing. Possession of a forged instrument." "This is a mistake," Marcus said, his tone measured but unmistakably serious. "A very expensive mistake." "Hands behind your back," BR ordered. Marcus didn't move. "I am giving you a lawful order as a federal director to stand down under 18 U.S. Code Section 711. Marcus said clearly, projecting his voice toward the body camera. Interfering with a federal employee is a felony. Do not touch me. BR didn't listen. He saw defiance. He saw a man who wouldn't submit. And to Officer Kyle Brar, that was all the justification he needed. He grabbed Marcus's left wrist and wrenched it behind his back with unnecessary force. The tablet slipped from Marcus's hand and shattered against the pavement. That is government property. Marcus said through clenched teeth as the cold steel cuff snapped onto his wrist. You just damaged federal equipment. Add resisting arrest. BR grunted, forcing Marcus's other arm back. The second cuff clicked shut. The sound echoed in the quiet industrial street the moment authority crossed into abuse. Marcus didn't struggle. He understood the physics of resistance. Every movement could be used as justification. Every reaction could be rewritten as aggression. So he stood still. Shoulders squared. Posture unbroken. Even as the cuffs bit into his wrists, the tablet lay cracked on the pavement between them. Officer Barr looked down at it for a moment then. With a casual flick of his boot, kicked it into the grass beside the fence. That device contains sensitive federal data, Marcus said evenly, forcing his voice to remain steady. If it's compromised, you're responsible for a data breach. BR didn't respond. Instead, he tightened his grip and began steering Marcus toward the patrol car. By now, they weren't alone. 2 utility workers in hard hats had stepped out from the main gate, drawn by the raised voices. They stopped about 50 feet away, watching in silence. They saw the black Mercedes parked legally along the curb. They saw the well-dressed man in handcuffs. They saw the young officer pushing him forward. One of the workers slowly raised his phone, pretending to check a message, but the camera was recording. Marcus noticed. He lifted his chin slightly. You are making a lawful arrest based on probable cause, Marcus asked. Speaking clearly now. His voice deliberate, aimed not at the officer but at the body camera. You refused to identify. BR replied loudly. You presented a forged federal credential. You were trespassing on critical infrastructure. The credential is valid. Marcus stated, you refuse to verify it. You have access to NCIC. You could have confirmed my status in under 30 seconds. BR ignored him and opened the rear door of the cruiser. Get in. The door slammed shut behind Marcus, and with it closed, the last opportunity for this encounter to end quietly. The back seat of the cruiser was hard plastic, narrow, and unforgiving. Marcus had to angle his long legs awkwardly beneath the divider, his suit bunching uncomfortably at the shoulders. The door slammed shut with a final, hollow thud. Inside, the air smelled of stale coffee and sweat. Marcus closed his eyes for half a second, not in fear, but in focus. He was furious. Not the explosive kind of anger that made people shout. The cold kind that sharpened memory and strategy. Through the plexiglass divider, he watched Officer BR circle the vehicle. Chest puffed out. Confidence swelling. BR keyed his radio. Dispatch. Sibailingar. 1 in custody. Transporting to Central. Charges trespassing. Failure to identify. Possession of forged credentials. Copy. Sibailingar. The dispatcher replied. BR slid into the driver's seat and glanced at Marcus in the rearview mirror. You know, he said casually, starting the engine. If you'd just been humble and shown me your driver's license, maybe we could have worked this out. Marcus met his eyes in the mirror. Humble, he repeated quietly. Yeah, BR said, pulling away from the curb. You guys always think a suit makes you untouchable. You guys. Marcus let the words sit in the air. No, he said evenly. I think the Constitution makes me protected from unreasonable search and seizure. BR snorted. You a lawyer or something? I audit lawyers. Marcus replied. And, for the record, you are currently committing a kidnapping under color of law. BR laughed, shaking his head. Keep talking. I'll add threats to an officer to the report. Marcus said nothing more. He didn't need to. He was already memorizing the time, the route, the badge number, and every word that would soon appear on a transcript far more dangerous than any police report. The drive to Central Precinct took just under 15 minutes. For Officer BR, it felt like a victory lap. In his mind, he hadn't arrested a federal official. He'd caught a high-level con artist, someone bold enough to pretend authority where he had none. The cruiser rolled into the Sallyport with a sharp turn. The garage door closed behind them with a metallic crash. BR yanked open the rear door. Out. Marcus stepped onto the concrete floor. Shoulders back. Expression unreadable. Inside the processing area, phones rang. Keyboards clacked. And a handful of detainees sat slumped on metal benches. It was a routine Tuesday until it wasn't. The desk sergeant looked up. His name was Miller, 58 years old, 3 decades on the job. A man who had seen every scam, every lie, every variation of human desperation. His eyes moved first to the suit, then to the posture, then to the face. And he stopped chewing his gum. What do we have here? Miller asked. Voice gravelly. Caught him at the substation. BR said confidently. Trespassing. Taking notes. Refused to ID. Showed me a fake federal badge. Resisted arrest. Miller's eyes shifted to Marcus. Sir, he said carefully. What's your name? My name is Marcus Thorne. Marcus replied. I am the Regional Director of Federal Compliance for the Department of Infrastructure. The credentials in my jacket pocket are legitimate. I demand you remove these cuffs and contact the U.S. Attorney's Office immediately. Beer scoffed. They're fake. Sarge. Looked like something printed off the internet. Miller didn't answer. He reached into Marcus's pocket and retrieved the commission book. The moment he opened it, his face drained of color. Sergeant Miller ran his thumb along the edge of the commission book. Feeling its weight, he tilted it under the fluorescent light, watching the holographic seal shift color. This wasn't a prop. This wasn't a novelty badge. This was real. Miller looked up slowly, his eyes locking onto Officer Brar. You didn't run this, he said quietly. BR frowned. I told you. Sarge, it's fake. He wouldn't show a driver's license. Miller closed the commission book and placed it flat on the counter. This, he said, tapping it once, outranks your driver's license. The room went silent. Miller reached for his radio. Captain Reynolds. You need to come to booking. Now. Less than 30 seconds later, the captain emerged from his office. Captain Reynolds was sharp, politically careful, and acutely aware of budgets. When he saw Marcus Thorne standing in handcuffs, his face drained of color. Get those cuffs off him. Reynolds barked. BR hesitated. Cap, he was uncooperative. I said get them off. Now. BR fumbled with the keys and unlocked the cuffs. Marcus rubbed his wrists. Red welts already forming. Then straightened his jacket and tie. Director Thorne, Reynolds said, extending a hand. Voice tight. I'm Captain Reynolds. I sincerely apologize for this misunderstanding. Marcus looked at the hand, then back at Reynolds. This was not a misunderstanding. Marcus said evenly. This was an unlawful detention. An assault. and interference with a federal official. BR stood in the corner now, smaller than he had all day. "I want the booking sheet." Marcus continued, "I want the incident report preserved. I want the body camera footage secured." Reynolds swallowed. "I am formally notifying you." Marcus finished. "That litigation is pending." And in that moment, everyone in the room understood the same thing. This wasn't going away. Marcus Thorne didn't leave the precinct right away. He stood calmly at the counter as Sergeant Miller processed his release, making one request very clear: do not delete the arrest entry. Marcus said evenly, "I want the record to show exactly what happened here." No one argued. The station was silent now. Phones still rang. Keyboards still clicked. But every officer in the room knew the same thing. A lawsuit wasn't coming. It had already begun. Marcus left the precinct 40 minutes later, refusing a ride from the department. He stood on the steps outside, the afternoon sun warm against his face, and examined the red marks forming around his wrists. Then he made one phone call, not to his boss, not to his family, to the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. By the next morning, the lawsuit was filed. But Marcus didn't stop there. Using his authority, he triggered a full federal compliance review of the department's grant eligibility. Millions of dollars in federal funding were suddenly frozen pending investigation. Internal Affairs pulled body camera footage. It was damning. The escalation, the refusal to verify credentials, the destruction of federal property. Then they dug deeper. Officer BR had a pattern. Minority stops at triple the department average. Multiple complaints quietly dismissed. 3 months later, Officer Kyle Barr was no longer a police officer. The city settled for $450,000. Mandatory training was imposed. Oversight boards established. Marcus donated every dollar of the settlement to a civil rights defense fund. Weeks later, he returned to work. Another inspection. Another audit. The grid still needed oversight. But the memory of those handcuffs stayed with him, because no matter how powerful you are, no matter how high you rise to the wrong person, you're still just a suspect. So ask yourself this: if it could happen to him, what happens to the people who don't have a federal badge in their pocket? That's why these stories matter. Because knowing your rights is only the first step. Holding authority accountable is the rest. What would you have done in Marcus's place? Was the outcome enough, or should there have been more consequences? Let me know in the comments. And remember, stay safe out there. And know your rights.